Everyone in the restaurant turned when the front doors slammed open, but only one man kept his voice steady as the chaos unfolded before him. "She's with me," he said, calm, grounded, utterly unshaken, while the billionaire heiress everyone recognized from the news stood frozen beside his table like she had just run through a storm. The room went silent. Forks hovered mid-air. Even the music faded into irrelevance. No one could understand why a girl worth more than the building they were standing in had sought refuge behind a single dad eating dinner with his young daughter. But she knew. And he knew. And in that moment, their worlds collided in a way neither of them could ever take back. It had started an hour earlier, before the chaos, before the whispers, before anyone realized the city's most unreachable heiress was running for her life. Eli Carter only wanted a quiet evening with his 10-year-old daughter, Sky. After a long week fixing cars at the workshop and juggling school pickups, the promise of a simple dinner at their favorite place felt like a luxury. Sky kept swinging her legs happily beneath the table, humming while she studied the menu she had memorized a long time ago. Eli smiled at her, feeling the weight of the world lift just a little. He lived for these moments, small, peaceful, ordinary. But peace had a habit of breaking around people like her. Across the street, Ava Lennox had entered the night as someone who owned everything yet felt completely stranded in her own life. She had escaped from a charity gala hosted by her father, escaped, because that was the only word for it. Not left. Not stepped out. Escaped. Her father's business partners had been circling her all evening, each one pretending to care about her dreams while really negotiating which company she should support through endorsement, which partnership she should consider, which billionaire's son she should at least meet. She had smiled through all of it, because she'd been raised to be polished, perfect, poised. But on the inside, every second made her more suffocated. The pressure, the expectations, the weight of being a Lennox, it all boiled until she couldn't breathe. So when she saw the back door that led to the alleyway, she didn't think. She just ran. That's what brought her across the street in heels she could barely feel anymore, hair falling loose from its once flawless style, makeup smudged as she tried to hide her face from the security guards chasing after her. "Miss Lennox," someone shouted from down the block, but she kept running, her breath shaking. The lights of the family restaurant pulled her like a lifeline. Maybe because it looked warm. Maybe because it looked normal. Maybe because she had forgotten what normal felt like. Inside, Eli was cutting Sky's burger in half when he heard the first scream outside. He didn't look up, not until the doors burst open and the heiress of Lennox International stumbled inside like she had outrun a nightmare. Everyone recognized her. How could they not? Her face was all over magazines, billboards, and charity events. She was the girl born into unimaginable wealth, the girl raised in diamonds and discipline. The last person anyone expected to see rushing into a small neighborhood restaurant with panic in her eyes. Ava looked around wildly, until her gaze collided with Eli's. For a second she froze. Maybe it was his eyes, steady, warm, not demanding or judging. Maybe it was the way he instinctively pulled Sky closer, ready to protect what mattered. Or maybe it was because he looked real in a way no one in her world ever did. She moved toward him without thinking. The restaurant manager hurried forward, stammering. "Miss Lennox? Is everything all right? Should we call?" "No," Ava whispered, her voice shaking. The room spun. Her lungs burned. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. "Please, please don't." The guards caught up seconds later, storming through the entrance with earpieces and stern expressions. "Miss Lennox, please come with us," the lead guard ordered. "Your father is extremely concerned. You're making a scene. Let's go." Ava's breath hitched. She stepped back instinctively, closer to Eli's table. The guard reached for her arm. Before the heiress could speak, before anyone could blink, Eli rose from his seat. His movements were slow, deliberate, steady, like someone who'd been through storms before and learned not to flinch. She's with me, he said, his voice calm but firm. The entire room froze. The guard stopped mid-reach. Excuse me? You heard me, Eli replied. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't puff up his chest. He simply stood there like a man who refused to let fear dictate his actions. She's with me. Ava stared at him in disbelief. She didn't know him. He didn't know her. Yet he stood between her and the life she was running from like it was natural, like protecting strangers was something he just did. Sky tugged at her father's sleeve, whispering, "Dad, is she okay?" Ava's eyes softened at the little girl's concern. Something about Sky's innocence made the pressure in her chest crack just enough to breathe again. "She's fine," Eli said gently to his daughter, but he kept his gaze locked on the guard. "Sir," the guard said, voice firming, "this is a private family matter. You have no right to interfere." Eli stepped half a foot closer to Ava, not touching her, but placing himself unmistakably between her and the guards. "Looks like she doesn't want to go with you. That's enough for me." Ava swallowed hard. No one had stood up for her like this in years. People obeyed her family. They didn't question them. They didn't protect her, they protected her image. The guard's jaw tightened. "Miss Lennox, please tell this man to step aside." Ava felt the room staring at her. Waiting. Judging. Expecting her to give in, to let herself be escorted back to a life she hated. But standing behind this ordinary man and his daughter, she felt safe. Safe in a way she didn't understand. Safe in a way she couldn't walk away from. Her voice was shaky but clear. "I don't want to go." Gasps echoed across the restaurant. The guard's face darkened. "Your father will not like this." Ava's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "My father doesn't own me." The guard took a step forward. Eli didn't back down. In that instant, something unspoken passed between the single dad and the billionaire heiress, something protective, instinctive, almost electric. She had run from a world of power. And somehow landed beside a man who didn't need any to stand up for her. For a moment, the restaurant felt like the center of the universe, every breath held, every eye fixed on the unlikely trio standing in the middle of the room. Ava could feel her pulse echoing in her ears, loud and frantic, but beneath the panic, there was something else. Something steadier. Something anchored in the man standing in front of her like a shield he never asked to be. Eli didn't break eye contact with the guard. He didn't raise his voice or tense his body the way most people did when confronting authority. He just stood there, calm and unshakable, as if protecting strangers was a responsibility he'd quietly carried his whole life. "Sir," the guard repeated, irritation rising, "move aside. Miss Lennox is required to return to her family. They've sent us to escort her safely." "I said she's with me," Eli answered, still soft but firm. "You don't escort someone who's begging you to leave her alone." Ava's breath hitched. No one had defended her like this, not without an agenda, not without expecting something in return, not without calculating what they could gain from her name. "Miss Lennox," the guard said, turning his attention back to her with a strained smile, "your father is worried. Let's not make a scene." Ava almost laughed, a cracked, breathless laugh that never fully formed. A scene? This entire night had been a scene. A performance she never auditioned for. A life where she was the puppet instead of the person. She stepped closer to Eli, feeling the warmth of his presence even though they weren't touching. "I'm not going with you," she whispered. That whisper set off a ripple of murmurs across the room. Sky looked between the adults, her young brow furrowed with concern. "Dad, are they bad guys?" The guard flushed with embarrassment. "We're simply doing our job, little girl." Sky blinked at him, then hugged her stuffed keychain closer, unconvinced. Eli's voice dropped lower, more controlled. "If she says no, that's the end of it. You need to leave." The guard exhaled